Anna Zubets-Anderson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, what's the deal with therapy?
What's the deal with therapy? That's my new profession. I'm a career changer. You know that.
Mhm.
What's the deal with therapy? Yeah, it's a weird job. I would describe the field as, I guess we help people heal from things that hold them back from being best versions of themselves and living the best version of their lives.
Mhm. What led you to make this career change? Because if memory serves, you were more in quote unquote corporate America, and now not so much. Now as a therapist. So what led you to make this change?
That is such a big question. Where would you like me to start? Like from childbirth or?
Yes, childbirth, perfect.
Well, most therapists, I feel like the people who choose the profession, right? Like most people have had to walk their own heroes' journeys or their own heroines' journeys and um, deal with their own dragons and so on. So I think when you're a type of person who has to live a life in a state of self-discovery and figuring out things that hold you back, at some point you kind of want to give that back and help other people do the same. It's kind of that whole like Jungian archetype, the in mythology you have the hero who goes through all kind of trials and tribulations and has to bring the treasure back. I
Mhm.
think that's most therapists, right? They walk a path of their own self-discovery and their own healing,
Mhm.
and then their calling becomes, well, I'm going to help others do it.
Okay.
So I think that's the short answer. I think that's probably the answer that most therapists would give you.
Okay. Okay. And then
Wait,
there's
wait.
there's steps to become a therapist. So especially coming from a place where you were in the accounting and finance industry and working in corporate, all these steps. So talk to me about that because I'm sure some listeners maybe are thinking about becoming therapists or they have children who are in college, they're thinking about different majors, whether it's psychology or whatever else. So what steps did you take to become officially a therapist?
Yeah, it's not a simple thing to become a therapist. Like I initiated the career change now like 10 years ago. I mean, it was slow because, like you said, I was working in corporate, and trying to do also raising kids. So a lot of things at the same time. Um, uh, it is a complex process. So, as you know, I started out as a coach. So I got my coaching certification first, and I did coaching for a while, and I still do coaching, and I love coaching. But coaching is somewhat separate from healing, though. Like if you're gonna help people heal their childhood issues, emotional problems, traumas, things like that, that's therapy, and you have to be qualified to be a therapist. It's distinct from coaching. So at some point, I decided that coaching wasn't enough. I wanted to be a therapist. So in order to be a therapist, you do have to have a master's degree.
Mhm.
Um, and to have a master's degree, of course, you have to have a bachelor's degree. Now, my bachelor's was in accounting and finance,
Mhm.
and that is actually fine. So, like, if you have a bachelor's in a different discipline entirely, you can get a master's that qualifies you to become a therapist. So, that's kind of nice. I mean, there are a lot of people who come into therapy later in life. It's a common, second career choice.
Mhm.
So, nice thing is that you can get a master's degree that's qualifying without having a bachelor's degree that's in the same profession.
Mhm.
There are a few different master's degrees that you can get that qualify you to become a therapist, particularly in the United States. It varies country by country, but in the US, there are different things. You can do master's in social work, which is what I did. You
Mhm.
can do master's in counseling. Let's see. There are family therapists that have different kind of masters. There are different kind of agencies that accredit these master's degree. There's like CACREP that accredits a different master's degree. For us, there's a social work board association. Forget now the exact name of it, but they accredit degrees that prepare social workers. So anyway, there's different paths. The ones I chose is to become a licensed social worker. So that's what I do now.
Mhm.
And it was a master's degree in social work.
Mhm. Okay, and that master's degree, what went into that? How many credits were there? What were the nature of the coursework? What was the nature of the coursework?
So for for the one that I did, so Masters in Social Work is 60 credits. I can't believe I'm already starting to forget this stuff. It's 60 credits. I think this is typical for these qualifying degrees that prepare you for licensure later. And then usually there's an internship involved as well. So you would get a master's degree, and part of that master's degree would be a live internship where you work under supervision and actually do therapy or do clinical social work.
Mhm.
And then, the coursework, again, depends on the path you choose. So, like for social work, which is what I did, the coursework is both what we call micro and macro, meaning you learn about the systems that shape people,
Mhm.
right? And how systemic problems cause troubles in individuals.
Mhm.
So you very much learn the big picture. So you touch things like human rights, for example, and poverty and social problems and things like that, social justice, all those issues. And
Mhm.
then you also take coursework in micro area, as we call it, which would be things like how family systems work and um, what different techniques you might use to help people overcome their everyday problems, like cognitive behavioral therapy, um, you might take a class in developmental stages throughout human life, how it changes people.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like with Masters of Social Work, one thing that I liked about it is that it is a very broad picture,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't just focus on one thing. Like, for example, if you were to get like Masters in art therapy, which is something I considered as well,
Mhm.
that would be like, you'd learn about how to use art to help people heal from emotional problems, traumas, and so on.
Mhm.
Something like Masters of Social Work is much, much broader picture. You learn about systems, you learn about people, you learn about family systems,
Mhm.
you learn about how individuals develop, how they heal, and so on.
Mhm.
So yeah, it depends. And so after you get your master's degree, depending which path you chose, you would have certain number of hours that you would have to do of supervised work. So like that's what I'm doing right now. I work as a therapist, but I have to work under supervision because I'm not fully licensed yet. So like after my master's degree, I passed an exam, I became licensed, but it's like a provisional license. So it qualifies me to be a therapist, but I have to be supervised.
Mhm.
So I have to get 2,000 client sessions under supervision before I can become a fully licensed therapist.
Okay.
And that's typical, like so if you become um, a family therapist, they have their own hours requirements. If you were to become an art therapist, there are different kind of supervision requirements. Same with counseling, there are many different paths.
Okay. So I'm hearing about the educational aspect, which is the master's degree, and then there's also the experience aspect, which is the in sessions under the supervision, right? But then also this test. So tell me a little bit about the test that you passed, obviously, right?
Yeah,
So
I feel like I feel like that's the easy part, honestly.
okay.
I forgot about it because I feel like that was actually the easiest part for me, at least. I'm a good test taker, like that's my superpower. I'm good at learning stuff and passing a test for whatever that's worth. Nobody wants to pay me for it. That's one gift that I have. Yeah, it's the licensed master social worker examination. And your license to practice social work is state specific. So like my license is in New Jersey and New York, but I have two licenses, one in New York, one in New Jersey. But the exam is actually US wide. So you take one exam and it qualifies you for all the different states. It's uniform examination. Shoot, how long is it? Like I want to say it was 4 hours. So yeah, so it's broad subject matter. So it's like you're a master of social work subject matter. So they will ask you about systems, they will ask you about social justice, they'll ask you about how programs work to help people, and then they will also ask you about human development and how to help people function better, in their lives. So it's a very, very broad exam covering a lot of different topics.
Mhm.
There are a lot of different resources available, right? Books and apps and stuff to help you learn.
Mhm.
And then it's 4 hours, and they tell you if you passed or not. And you have a few tries. If you don't pass, I think you wait 90 days, try it again.
Okay.
I did pass in the first try.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. But that was, like I said, I feel like that wasn't hard. I'd say that the Masters of Social Work at Fordham actually prepared me fairly well.
Hmm.
Wasn't like, yeah, when I did the overview and studied for it, it probably took me like a good quarter to study, but it was very much a review of things I already knew.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, what is the most rewarding part of your work in therapy?
I love like when I work with a client and like it present like I can actually offer insight or see them make their own insight via the questions that I ask
Hmm.
and something clicks and you know that their life is shifting in the way they see the world and themselves is shifting because of the work with you.
Hmm.
Um, that's very fulfilling. It's very rewarding to see.
Hmm.
Um, and that's like one thing that it's almost like a best kept secret in therapy is like very often clients come and they share their journeys with you and it resonates like it's similar to your own journey or it's something you're experiencing too and
Hmm.
like you offer insight to clients or you offer tools that help them and after the session you're like yeah I could use those too because it's like something you might be going through something very similar in life yourself, you know what I mean, and it's like helping somebody else
Hmm.
actually the best way to remind yourself, of the tools that you should be using too. Does that make sense?
Does. And I heard earlier that the hero's journey, right? That Jungian archetype. And when I think of therapy, I also often think of psychology and those giants of Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung. So can you do a little compare and contrast for me between Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud? I know those are
Oh
two
God.
of the big names.
Well, I'm gonna screw this up because I don't know that I have like, on the tip of my tongue, like a great comparison.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, Freud, I would probably describe him more like, he would understand, like he understood ego, right? And how our inner base impulses interact with the demands that society places on us. Carl Jung I mean, his contribution that I really find interesting is like his understanding of collective unconsciousness
Mhm.
and how we're all interconnected, right? And how human psyche works in layers. Um, and how their archetypal journeys that people undertake, like you can predict how human psyche evolves, like there's a structure to it, and how, you know, we're all sort of connected to the human consciousness more generally, like that it exists around us as well as existed through the centuries. So it's a very different, it's hard to compare and contrast them because I feel like it's a very different perspective on what makes human psyche.
Mhm.
That's kind of my take on it, but that's probably not like, you know, maybe with somebody who got PhD in this stuff would say something different.
Okay.
I'm more of a Carl Jung person. That's what I subscribe to. That's my jazz. Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. I subscribe to this idea that there is like an infrastructure to human psyche and a human soul,
Mhm.
and it sort of evolves according to a set of laws that we don't always understand.
Mhm.
But it's like it repeats journeys that you can see throughout human history,
Mhm.
like going back thousands of years. That's where myth comes from. That's where, a lot of religion comes from. Um, it's almost like a plant grows without thinking about it. There's a way that plant grows. There's like that's the DNA of how the plant is going to evolve.
Mhm.
There's a way that tree heals. It doesn't have to think about it. And I think human psyche is the same. It's like it has a footprint, like a footprint of evolution within it, like how it's supposed to evolve throughout lifetime. And the type of flower, butterfly, whatever you want to call it, it's meant to become.
Mhm.
And it also knows how to heal. It has like a healing process that's embedded, like it's within us. Um, and so I think a lot of the work really is sort of unearthing it from all the separating that and unearthing it from all the social influences and all the ways that we learn not to evolve and not to become best versions of ourselves or all the things that prevent us from healing.
Mhm.
But I think it's like within the imprint for who we're meant to become and how to heal, it's
Mhm.
within us. So that's kind of very Anna description, but it's rooted in sort of Jungian psychology.
Okay. So we'll put Sigmund Freud to the side for the moment, and I would love to get more into Carl Jung. That's okay. You give me maybe the dummy's guide of him, his life, his work, and the 101, shall we say, on Carl Jung from the beginning.
Well, let's see. I don't know that I know that much about his life, other than I'll tell you that he was kind of a non-conforming.
Hmm.
He was a psychiatrist, Swedish, I think, right at the turn, like about 100, over 100 years ago that he lived. Um, he was taken seriously because he was a psychiatrist. At the same time, his work in collective unconscious was very, rebellious at the time, right? A lot of people were skeptical. I mean, he was the one, uh, scientist in that realm who like took the whole idea of human soul seriously. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, he really dug into like spirituality and how it works, but he made it scientific, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, his understanding was that like our minds aren't really separate from each other or humanity as a whole, right? That there's like almost like an ocean. I mean, that's again my Anna words, my
Hmm.
description. It's almost like you have like layers of depth, right? So we're all operating over here with our consciousness,
Hmm.
impacted by our daily lives, the society we live in, and so on. But the deeper you go, the more you're tapping into like a collective consciousness field,
Hmm.
which is like almost like collective knowledge of all of humanity.
Hmm.
So like theoretically, we all have access to that just through our minds.
Hmm.
Like, like the knowledge of everything that lived before kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I don't know that that's idea is directly Jungian, but I guess that could be inferred that like if you pass, right, like that just kind of goes back into the ocean, whatever your life experience is.
Hmm.
And then somehow through your consciousness and your mind, you're actually connected to all of that, almost like via network.
Hmm.
Everybody who lives today and everybody who lived before you,
Hmm.
it's all very like interconnected.
Hmm.
Um, Let me think about other Jungian things that are pretty interesting, that we have feels a major contribution that also is like very relevant to the work that I love, right? Is that we have shadow material, right? Like things that we repress, like parts of ourselves that we don't like or our society maybe taught us not to like, our wounds, our traumas that like are darker sides of our psyche that we tend to hide from the world and ourselves.
Hmm.
So part of Jungian, at least that's what I understand is Jungian understanding, right? Like if you have these traumas or shadows or things that you were taught not to like, and you're not like you're repressing them and not fully aware of them, well, Jung said, these shadows will drive your life and you will call it fate. So like if you don't see them or you don't want to see them, you don't want to look there, that is something that will drive your life and you won't even know it.
Hmm.
So like things that we hide from ourselves, we tend to project them out, right? We project them on other people, we project them on situations, and we might not even be aware of it. So Jung, I believed that, your important job, your most important job for the lifetime is to integrate those shadows, like to come to terms with them, see them, understand them, and actually integrate them into the light, to make the unconscious conscious is the way he put it.
Hmm.
So your most important job is like understand your shadows, make them conscious, and integrate them into your psyche,
Hmm.
your living everyday psyche. And kind of that's how you become the best version of yourself, right? Is to integrate both the light and shadow.
Hmm.
And then that basically it's the individuation process is what he would call it, right? Like that makes you into the version of yourself that makes the best contribution to the society that you can make.
Hmm.
But these are all like, don't quote them as Jung quotes because I feel like these are Anna Anna interpretations of Jung, right? So this is like my what I carried away from reading Carl Jung about Carl Jung and people who wrote after him, right, based on his teachings, like Joseph Campbell in particular.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about Joseph Campbell.
Well, he's very interesting, right? Like he wasn't a psychologist actually. He was a historian, I believe. I think that was his vocation.
Mhm.
Um, and he studied myth, um, of like myth of all the different cultures throughout human history. Um, and so it's similar, like Jungian concept. Like I think it was more Campbell's contribution to say that human psyche has an infrastructure, right? There is a way that it operates, in the way that it evolves, and the way that it heals that's fairly predictable because it operates according to like a set of laws.
Mhm.
And that process, like the way it works, is captured in the myths. So
Mhm.
different cultures, they capture it in the myth. That's they describe how human psyche works, how it evolves through the lifetime, how it interacts with society, all those things. And that's why human myth is so similar, across different cultures, across different times in human history. You find these like storylines that keep repeating. And the reason they do that is that that's the infrastructure of the human psyche. So
Mhm.
that's what he studied. Like his what was the book? The Hero was a Thousand Faces. That was his famous book. So that's where the whole hero's journey thing comes from, right? Like the heroine's journey is that, you go through this process of healing, and it's a predictable process that's repeated in many different myths. And so
Mhm.
he kind of digested it, and summarized it, like these are the stages you're supposed to go through. That's the whole idea of coming back with elixir. That's hero's journey.
Mhm.
You go into the shadows, you meet your demons and your dragons, and battle your dragons, whatever, you come back with a gift for the world.
Mhm. Okay.
So that's Campbell's thing. Yeah.
Okay.
He's had a lot of interesting things. You know, one of his beliefs was that um myth actually is very important to the health of the human psyche. So like again, I'm paraphrasing, might be screwing it up, but that's my understanding.
Mhm.
Is that human psyche has this infrastructure for how it evolves and how it heals. Well, in order for that whole process to happen optimally, you actually need a myth, like some kind of imaginal reality. Um, if we live our lives too literally, just the job, just the things that we see, the roads, the cars, the politics, whatever. If
Mhm.
we're missing that imaginal reality, that myth, then psyche is actually not operating optimally, right? It's locked out of its natural process of evolution and healing. Um, and he kind of described our present modern day that there is this like tragedy and that we kind of became disconnected from the myth.
Mhm.
And the reason we became disconnected from the myth is that it used to be that religions fulfilled all these different functions, right? Like it gave you the myth, like here's what happens after you die, and here's how you're supposed to live your life or whatever. It gave you the cosmos understanding, like here's how the universe works. It gave you rules of operating society, like here's how the society works. Here's how, the rules of the society are supposed to function. So it did all these things, and then little by little, right, religion kind of like diverse from modern life, so like rules of society is now what, like laws, right? Like social justice, human rights, that's all good stuff, but it's separated from religion. While science took over our understanding of the cosmos and the universe, so then religion lost the foothold there, right? Like the way it's describing the world is not the same as what the science is saying. The science took over that area. So because like these areas of life moved away from religion, we kind of lost the religion as the organizing principle for our societies, which means we lost the myth. And that's not healthy for the psyche to lose the myth. And because our understanding of the world and the society evolves so quickly, we can't figure out the myth. Do you know what I mean? Like the moment you make the myth, it falls apart because the society moves forward, the science moves forward, the myth no longer makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like prior cultures before us, they could have a myth that lasted thousands of years, and people believed that myth, and we can't have that anymore. And that creates a pretty unhealthy human psyche, and he thought that the replacement is art,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm rambling over here.
Making perfect sense. We did a little Carl Jung, we did a little Joseph Campbell, and let's just do a little Sigmund Freud for the heck of it. Talk to me about ego a little bit.
Gosh, I don't even know if this is going to be Freudian, but like, okay, I think that's Freudian. Like the understanding that there is, the id, which is like the part of us that's very self-indulged and self-centered. Like, it's in our relationship to the instincts, right? Like self-preservation, self-gratification, things like that.
Mhm.
And then you have the ego imposed by the society. Again, like I'm paraphrasing, so like Anna versions of all these things, right? This is how I understand them.
Mhm.
Um, then you have like the version of the ego that you create, as you grow up and evolve from being a small child. You create those ego versions to meet the demands society imposes on you. Like, now I have to have this version of me to make sure I'm palatable and I don't get rejected by the tribe, or get put in jail or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, well, in the id, like the deeper version that's like instinctual and that other version that's society acceptable, like they're going to be in conflict with each other
Mhm.
naturally, right? And that's going to create all kinds of neuroses, and part of the process of growing up is to learn to manage that.
Mhm.
It doesn't quite work to say, you don't have instincts. Like that's not going to fly very well, right? But doesn't really work to be like a self-gratifying animal who just runs around and does whatever it wants. We can't do that, right? So somehow you have to like reconcile the two,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of, process of growing up, adulting.
Okay. And with Carl Jung, I heard the word psychiatrist, right? So I know there's differences between being a therapist or being a psychologist or being a psychiatrist. When I hear psychiatrist, I always think of that's somebody that can prescribe medicine, right? But we're also going back 100 years here. So he was considered a psychiatrist, but back then were there drugs involved, medications involved in his treatments of people and his
Oh
studies
yeah,
and
I mean,
experimentation?
they definitely did the drugs back then, but I don't know much about his work in like pharmaceuticals, right? Like, I mean, I know Carl Jung, his contribution to like this collective unconscious and integrating shadows, archetypes, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, yeah, with archetype being again these larger structures that emerge through human myth that explain like repeating motifs in human psyche.
Mhm.
That's what I know Carl Jung for. So I don't know him for pharmaceutical contributions.
Right.
Um, no, it's interesting. A lot of people, I mean, like, kind of when you asked me about the prescription drugs, it made me think for some reason of like shamanic cultures, that use substances to connect to those deeper layers of psyche and archetypes and myths.
Mhm.
But all I know is that happens. I don't know much about which substances. I can certainly connect you to people who do, but I don't know very much about that.
Got it. But Sigmund Freud, he was known for cocaine, right? Wasn't that one of his things? If I remember.
I'm gonna have to
Okay.
look that one up. I don't
Okay.
know that the
Okay.
cocaine was. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, all these people who contributed great things, great ideas.
Mm.
I mean, there were various degrees of crazy themselves because you kind of have to like be capable of a crazy thought to come up with something original and interesting that lasts. You know what I'm saying? Like if
I
you're like,
do.
oh, like, here's what I've been taught and I'm gonna follow the rules and I'm gonna like just tick the boxes and be really great and have this like professional license and I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to, you're not going to contribute anything new, right? You have to be a little bit of a maverick to contribute something interesting. So they were all, wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if there was cocaine involved. I don't
The,
know.
the non-conformist, as they say,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, I think all these guys are nonconformists.
And then and the reason I ask about psychiatry, because as we explore in different podcast episodes, different professions, right, lines of work, career tracks, but that's the difference. A psychiatrist will prescribe medication. I know, and these days too, I feel like there's a lot of comebacks of things that were popular in the 60s or 70s when it comes to hallucinogens or LSD. I feel like there's a little bit of a comeback with some of that, and I know it's not your expertise, but what's the narrative out there in terms of some of the comebacks of those medications, shall we say?
Let me think like what I should like how because I don't that's not my area. I don't know much about these things because like for me that has never worked, right?
Mhm,
Like I don't my body rejects
mhm,
that kind of stuff, so I'm not passing any judgment or saying anybody should or shouldn't or it works or it doesn't work. It's hard for me to contribute much on it because I don't like I haven't done it really because not because I think it's like oh you shouldn't, but more because it just doesn't work for my body, you know?
mhm,
Everybody's body is different.
mhm,
But I guess that I mean from what I would understand, right? The fundamental idea would be to find a way to quickly break through like, you know, these walls imposed by society and limiting beliefs, like limiting beliefs that we have, we know about these from coaching and stuff. All these things that we learn and like assumptions that we make, and then that creates this like block against deeper reality or deeper understanding of self, right?
mhm,
And the problem is that like a lot of the things that we do, even in talk therapy,
mhm,
it's sort of operating first at that cognitive level, like where the language operates, like the way you and I are dealing, like talking right now, right? Like we are dealing with that cognitive mind,
mhm,
language mind, the very mind that has these walls and blocks. Do you know what I mean? Like these beliefs. So the idea becomes like, how do you get underneath it? Well, it's probably not going to be through like regular conversation. Like you need something else.
mhm,
So these substances kind of alter your consciousness where you're able to get behind like and kind of see behind the wheels, I guess.
mhm,
Like deeper reality. For me, like I get similar, well, I don't I have nothing to compare it to because I'm not like the hallucinogenic person,
mhm,
but I feel like maybe I get something similar via art making.
mhm,
Um, because I get in creative flow, and then my logical mind steps back. The mind that does language steps back. The mind that has beliefs, limiting or not, society imposed structures, all that stuff, it steps back. And then through the artistic process, because it's so free flowing and there are no rules,
mhm,
something else is an opportunity to voice itself.
mhm,
And that something else sometimes feels very separate from my everyday self. And so there's an opportunity for me to see things, like see things about my own psyche and see things about the world around me that I wouldn't otherwise be able to see because I'm limited, with all the stuff that I learned and I have to like deal with that ego that we're talking about, right? It's almost like a shell,
mhm,
but like through this kind of other process that has to do with emotions and creativity, I'm able to like almost get underneath or out of the shell and see things differently.
mhm,
So that's what art is for me. That's why I do it. It's not so much about making a pretty object. It's
mhm,
because that's how I trick my mind, right? Like I step out of my prison
mhm,
and see something different that I wouldn't otherwise see.
mhm,
From what I understand about the comeback with these different like hallucinogenics, people do mushrooms, different things. I think it's doing something similar, just maybe faster and maybe stronger,
mhm,
because art, I mean, sometimes honestly, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? Like I might sit in my art room for 4 hours, nothing special happens. I just get like stuff on a canvas that looks ugly. Like, and that might occur over and over again, but I have to keep showing up,
mhm,
to kind of hoping for that moment of transcendence, like that moment of magic where I'm like, oh my God, like I'm in a different state of mind and I see things differently.
mhm,
But I think, with the substances, maybe you get the result more reliably. I don't know.
mhm.
I can't speak to that because I don't do them because they don't work on my body. I honestly I would just turn like it doesn't stay.
Got it, got it. What else is therapeutic about art making for you?
So much, right? Like I love art as a healing modality. Um, Many people have written about it. let me see if I can kind of do it justice. Where do I start? Um, well, for one, all children learn and develop through play,
Mhm.
right? So, like, if you ask a child, what kind of play do you like to do? What kind of creative things do you like to do? A child will always have an answer, right? Or I like to draw, I like to make little music, I like to bang on the, wall to make like, banging sounds, whatever they like, right? A child will always Legos, whatever they like. They always have an answer. When you ask an adult, by the time we grow up, we don't have an answer, right? Like we often don't know what
Mhm.
kind of creative play we want to do. My point is that's the childlike part of us,
Mhm.
the part that's most authentic. Like that's what we were born with. We came into this world and we have this essence, childlike essence. That's the part, the thing that we were talking about, like it's meant to evolve according to its own like structure or its own footprint.
Mhm.
That thing talks through play.
Mhm.
That part of us. It talks through play, it knows itself through play, and it learns through play, just like children do, right? So if something happened in your personal life evolution, your childhood, where parts of you got lost, like that evolutionary process that was supposed to happen to you, like you were supposed to grow a certain way, just didn't happen, right? It got interrupted. Um, the question becomes, how do I go back and make that happen, right? Like how do I like take this thing that I've become, words of cranberries, that wasn't my design,
Mhm.
and how do I it wasn't my design, it was societal design, whoever design that was. How do I take myself out of that prison and go back to like that essence that I was born with and somehow help it evolve into what it was meant to evolve? How do I do that? My answer is that you do that through art.
Mhm.
Because just like children communicate through play, learn through play, grow through play, so can you, right? So if you enter the space of creative play, you are entering your own childlike essence that you left behind decades ago, and
Mhm.
you're giving that thing an opportunity to tell you what it is, to
Mhm.
tell you what it needs. You're giving an opportunity to evolve according to its own wisdom, its own innate structure, that Jung talked about, that Campbell talked about, right? You give it an opportunity to go through that evolution, and you're actually giving yourself an opportunity to maybe give it some love,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, give it space and time to exist, give it the witnessing that it might not get otherwise.
Mhm. Okay. When we say art and art making, so what falls within art? When we say that term, is it just painting, or it's a lot more than that, right? What are the different forms that art takes?
It's like asking what is love, right? It's like
Deep question. You
it's
have the floor. You have the floor. It's a deep question. So what is art? What falls within art? And what is art to you?
I mean, what is art is a question that's escaped like
Mhm.
philosophers for,
Take take
centuries, right? Right? I
take a
mean,
stab.
that
Take a stab at it.
that that that's the big argument, right? I mean, like, is the banana taped to the wall? Like, there's that art that's sold, I forgot, thousands of dollars it's sold for. Like somebody taped a banana to a blank canvas and sold, like, right, what is art? Is this taped banana an art? What is art? I'm going to say it's a very subjective experience, and it's really more about the process rather than the outcome, right? Like to me, it is art if it emerged from a particular kind of process
Mhm.
and creative process. And creative process would be when you found a way to tap into like an authentic part of you and let it speak through like a state of flow. I don't know. It's kind of a goofy definition almost.
Mhm.
It's because it's hard again, like this is something very nonverbal, right? Like that I'm trying to describe something that exists beyond like logic and cognition, so it's difficult for me to put into words because I'm actually speaking to something that exists beyond concept. But
Mhm.
I'm going to say art is something that emerges from that process where you were able to tap into an authentic part of self
Mhm.
and be in the flow of it.
Mhm.
Almost like it's like almost like the dance of collective unconscious that we talked about earlier.
Mhm. Okay. So that process, that creative process, that could be something like painting, right? And regardless of the outcome, right? Just the act of it, right? The process of it. Also, what dancing, would that fall into it? Does dancing a way for you to
Yeah,
express for you
these are this
personally? Is that something you do? Do you dance? Would that could be considered falling into art making?
I
Dancing?
do dance. I mean, I mean my creative process, honestly, it's like it doesn't it's kind of cross medium. I
Mhm.
feel like it works best for me. Like it does the thing that it's supposed to do, like the healing part that I was talking about, like tapping deep inside and healing parts of yourself and letting e- essential part of you speak and doing the evolutionary whatever thing that it does.
Mhm.
For me, like it works if I actually don't commit it to like an academic discipline, right? Like I feel like dance, painting, sculpture, writing, poetry, like these are kind of artificial like bubbles, you know? Part of the problem with the art world is that it tries to put you in the bubble. Like, are you a dancer or are you a painter or are you a writer, blah, blah, blah. For me, like when I go through my process, it was like it's like a snake. It goes through all of them, you know what I mean? Like I'll give you an example, like over the past decade, right? Like I've danced quite a bit. I do dance. Um, very often I would dance, sometimes I film myself dance. And sometimes it's like the shapes that emerge through the dance. I mean, this is like, dance is probably the fastest way to get like into your authentic self because it's like so somatic, right? Like you really have to fall into like what you feel deeply to be able to move. So like sometimes that would be like the first way I would see the shape that's trying to say something, if that makes sense. So then I would go paint that. Not, you see how it's like moving through like the disciplines. I would go paint that. Um, not necessarily the thing that I danced, but it would somehow get one would inspire the other, which is why like a lot of my paintings, if you see them, they will like depict women dancing in nature,
Mhm.
because it sort of started, the dancing was a starting point for the artwork. So then
Mhm.
I would paint that. So for example, like I spent a decade doing that. I have like a whole bunch of paintings that I made in that way. Well, at some point, it like became a story that I wrote, right? So then it sort of moved into more verbal expression. There was some poetry there too, but I feel like the writing was inspired by the paintings. Like
Mhm.
I could illustrate the writing with the paintings because like the first paintings were the first way I've communicated, but it was not verbal. But
Mhm.
then paintings helped me like conceptualize something that then became verbal.
Mhm.
Well, everything that I wrote over a decade, I just ripped it all up, and now I'm like making a painting out of the scraps. So like I'm gluing on the pieces of writing and then painting over that. Do you see what I mean? Maybe then I'll dance on top of it. I don't know. So
Mhm.
I'm just, so like the whole thing is like it's almost like a flow, or if you want to call it a dance or something that like moves through.
Mhm.
And I feel like it chooses whatever medium is most accessible to it in the moment. It does not care about the final product.
Mhm.
It very much cares about the process that the psyche is moving through.
Okay. So maybe somebody's listening right now or they're watching and they're struggling, right? And maybe they're not at the point where they want to do mushrooms per se, or they're not ready to hire a therapist yet, but there's these other bubbles, so to speak, within, to express sort of that the creative process, whether it's poetry, whether it's dance. What else can somebody maybe do to make themselves feel better or function better, short as an alternative maybe to mushrooms or LSD or hiring or going to a psychiatrist and taking pharmaceutical medication. So like tell me more what somebody can do like just even today for half hour to make themselves feel better. That's in that art, you umbrella, so to speak, that art tent.
I'm going to say that a lot of like things that make us feel bad, they are
Mhm.
either in the past or in the future, right? Like it's like, you might be sad because things that happened.
Mhm.
or things you lost. You might be anxious because of the things that are coming, things you're afraid of. The
Mhm.
more you can, this is very Buddhist, right? But the more you can pull yourself into now, the
Mhm.
better you feel, right? Like the more you pull yourself out of the past and the future,
Mhm.
and the more you can just stay with you, your breath, and your body,
Mhm.
the more you have access to joy, and the more you have access to yourself
Mhm.
and that thing that might want to create an artwork. Because like that thing that wants to create an artwork, you can't force it, right? I mean, if you're sitting there obsessing about what's going to happen tomorrow, it's not going to have a voice, right? It's not going to tell you go dance, go paint, go write, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, there needs to be like a pull, right? Like, oh, kind of fun to like write a poem. Like, but
Mhm.
for you to access that, you have to be in your body in the present moment now, not in the past, not in the future.
Mhm.
So like what can you do to get there? Like to like to that complete absorption in a present moment. Different things work for different people. I think meditation is great.
Mhm.
Works for a lot of people. I mean, obviously there are all kinds of things on internet you can find. Ask ChatGPT will give you meditation techniques.
Mhm.
Um, different things work for different people. I'm not like a sit down meditation person.
Mhm.
I have too busy of a mind. Like I start meditating, I just can't like it's like it doesn't shut up, right? So I so I for me it's like that doesn't it's not really my thing, but I like walking meditation. If I go walk in the woods or something, that works the same for me to like bring me into the body in the present moment.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, not everybody can get to an ocean, but to me, like that does magic of bringing me into that present moment and getting me in touch with myself. So I think like find something like that, right? That makes the time stop and
Mhm.
gets you out of all that thinking about other people, things that happen, things that will happen,
Mhm.
and make you very, very present with your own body and your own breath and your own sensations
Mhm.
and your own feelings.
Mhm.
And I think it's that space from which that like thread, the gold thread, the Ariadne thread, I think is the word, emerges.
Mhm.
And you like follow it like little, like like in the way that for me, I described to you what it is for me, right? Like start with movement, like some kind of dance, then go to painting, then maybe go to writing, then maybe go to poetry. That's how my psyche figures its way out. But
Mhm.
maybe for somebody else, it's their own different process. They have to I think their soul will tell them, right? But you have to create a space where your soul can actually speak and you can hear what it's saying. And I think it's that present moment, quiet presence with your own body that will do that.
Okay.
Does
So
that make sense?
it does writing. So writing that could take the form of even journaling, right, or having a diary, right, and it doesn't need to be conformist. It doesn't need to be, oh, I'm journaling and this is what I have to do, what I don't have to do. It really just to take a pen to a paper and just spending 10 minutes and just even stream of consciousness. But that would count as journaling, right? And just putting your thoughts on paper in the moment. Would that count?
That actually, like, a technique from Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Hmm.
Um, so like, how do you overcome the blocks, right, and get inspiration to flow and get ideas for your art and stuff like that?
Hmm.
Um, journaling is one of her key tools.
Hmm.
And that's actually my go-to that I recommend to clients all the time, like where I'm like, um, simplest thing that you can do to get access to yourself.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, journaling is an art form, I
Hmm.
think. It's like kind of a basic starting point. Start journaling and see where it goes. Like, so Julia Cameron's technique, which I very much like, is do journaling first thing in the morning before the world had a chance to get to you. So before all those like structures, like prisons that we talked about, before they get really loud because people got to you, and before like all that thinking about the past and the future got very loud, right? First thing in the morning, you wake up clear. They haven't gotten to you yet.
Hmm.
That's when you journal because you have the best access to deeper self.
Hmm.
And you journal like 3 big pages at least, like 8 by 11 or whatever.
Hmm.
You journal at least that, 3 of them or equivalent if you have smaller ones. Um, you don't feel like it, nothing coming out. fine. Just like write, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write over and over again. Like
Mhm.
so literally whatever comes, nothing, just write that. There is nothing. I have nothing to say. Nothing, nothing. Well,
Mhm.
eventually it will become something. The idea behind 3 pages is that for most people, that's enough for a breakthrough to happen. Right. So even if you're completely blocked and you're like, I literally got nothing to say right now,
Mhm.
generally for most people, 3 pages will be enough for
Mhm.
like magic to happen, some
Mhm.
kind of revelation to happen, some kind of opening to happen where you're like, we're able to access and realize you are feeling something, or you want something, you need to do something with your life. Or maybe it's an inspiration for an artwork or a poem or a painting or something, and you follow that thread.
Mhm.
I would
Interesting.
say, yeah, I would say my own creative process very much interacts with the journaling. I
Mhm.
feel like journaling is a bit of an anchor. I do it not every morning like Julia says you should, but I do it like a couple times a week.
Mhm.
And I almost always have an art project
Mhm.
that's in process. And I feel like those are like the two things. I feel like journaling is the cognitive piece,
Mhm.
and the art is like the emotional, intuitive piece.
Mhm.
And like if I do them both, they sort of interact to keep moving me forward in my process of evolution or healing or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Thank you for that. And I'm thinking about and going back to different professions, so to speak, whether it's becoming a therapist, whether it's being an artist, right? You and I have spoken about maybe not putting things in boxes where somebody's not necessarily defined by their work. Oh, that person's an attorney, and it's as simple as that. Or that person's an accountant. It's not always a way to define somebody. Sometimes they have more than one types of work that they do, right? Or so we talked. Here's one out of left field. So we talked about therapy, we talked about art, but then also here's one, forensic accounting. You do that as well. So that's
Yeah, I
that was
know,
a
a jack
so
of
talk to
all
me about
trades.
that. That's kind of the unexpected third piece here. So what does that look like? What's the deal with forensic accounting?
I mean, I guess the first thing I have to say, well, how the hell did you become an accountant, Hannah? You don't sound
That's
like an
a
accountant.
better question. Yeah, that's a better question. Run with that one, please. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't sound like an accountant. What the hell happened there? So, like, I became a CPA because, I was an immigrant. I needed stability. I needed work that would happen quickly and pay me well. Accounting seemed like a good fit. I also did not speak good English at the time, believe it or not. That was now, how many years ago? I'm gonna date myself really badly. It was 26 years ago. So I didn't speak English well at the time. And so it had to be a profession that, had numbers in it. So accounting seemed like a good fit. And so that's how I became a CPA. So you know, no regrets over becoming a CPA. It's a great trade, right? Like, I mean, served me very well over the decades, helped me survive and made sure that I ate and had enough disposable income to eventually pursue all the things that you and I spoke about today, right? I mean, it's hard to pursue these things if you are struggling with survival. Um, so certainly getting a CPA and getting into that profession got me out of survival mode eventually, which was very important. So I still have it, right? So it's like a tool that I have to make the income when I need it. And forensic accounting is, I'd say, the most interesting line of work I found in CPA-dom. So you work with lawyers and you work on cases that involve fraud or other issues where accounting is somehow involved. So I used to work in forensic accounting and do a lot of work involving like accounting law practice cases, class action lawsuits having to do with fraudulent cooked books, basically, or fraudulent disclosures, that were designed to mislead investors, right? So I would work with lawyers to help make cases um, against companies that misled investors, show that the disclosures were misleading and why. Forensic accounting work that I do at the moment, actually, like, and I'm just getting into it now, which is really fascinating, has to do with patents, So, like, when a patent gets infringed upon, somebody has to go in and say, well, these are the damages. That was the value of the patent or the value of the, the what the party lost because their patent got infringed upon. So that's very interesting work. You get to understand the patent, research a bit of technology, you get to like learn a lot about all kinds of random things. And then you get to apply your accounting skills to calculate the damages.
Okay. So
So
what's
not nearly as fascinating as all that union and myth stuff, but it's very practical
Mhm.
and interesting too.
Interesting for sure. So what's an example of something somebody can patent, or a few examples of something that you've seen patented in your travels as a forensic accountant?
Well, any kind of technology, right? Like for example, you could be patenting the way a heating system works, right? If you came up with a way to heat spaces that was very unusual or efficient, and you have a new product to do that, that would be a patent. You could patent particular kind of flavors that, get added into food and drink, right? Like you've discovered something that's very different and works really well.
Mhm.
You have a patent for that. I mean, there are all kinds of, it's like anything, basically our entire life, right? Like all the different things that we use every day, bunch of stuff is patented. So that's like the kind of forensic accounting work that I would do now, calculating damages and stuff. And again, I'm just starting. I'm not an expert in this. Like this is something, it's the work I do.
Mhm.
I'm still learning it. Yeah, it would basically deal with the kind of everyday technology that we all live with.
And these are patents that are filed with the United States federal government. Is that right? It's a federal and but somebody else may have invented the idea, come up with it first, or but if they didn't patent it, it doesn't matter. They'll probably lose in the case if they didn't file the patent and go through all the paperwork, even if they had it first and were running with
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I'm too new to talk too much about it, but yeah, I mean, basically that's the idea. Whoever filed it first,
Hmm.
that's the party that has the patent. And usually the dispute is over like, is your technology similar enough to my technology to consider that it's stolen?
Hmm.
Right? Like that's usually the dispute. And then if you did in fact steal it, like you were supposed to pay me royalties, how do I calculate the value of my loss? So like what are my lost profits because you were selling my product instead of me,
Hmm.
or what is the value of the royalties that you would have paid me if you had to pay me for use of my patent? That's usually what it circles around. It could be anything, it could be, I don't know, computers, right? Like a different phones, I'm sure. Like I'm sure there's stuff, technology in the phone that's patented. I mean, it's probably everywhere. Again, food flavors, heating systems, cooling systems, um, what's in the vehicles, right? Like I'm sure the way electric car is built, there's stuff in it that's patented, all kinds of technology.
I can't help but think of that creative process, right? We were talking about when it comes to art making, which could include even writing music, right? And how that ties in sometimes to the patents, where if there's these cases of very famous musicians where they get sued, they end up in the courtroom, going from that kind of, oh, this is very fun, creative process, art making, to being in a trial for stealing a lyric, right, or a beat, or there's been cases that have in the media. I don't know the names of the musicians per se, but it's out there where maybe even subconsciously they had this drum beat, right, or they repeated a certain lyric a few times, and so just I'm thinking of that dichotomy of creativity and art making to being being in a courtroom, being interrogated for not having created it. Somebody else created it first. I don't know. Can you comment on that? That just came to my mind of that kind
I'm just like as you were talking about it, I'm just thinking how like money can like ruin so many fun things. You know what I mean? Like, like yeah,
That's
like
mine, and here are my damages.
yeah, because
I
it's
own
like
that.
yeah, I'm going to say that the creative process that I spoke about earlier, like the healing process, it does not care like who did what, right? It's just like, I mean, this is very like there is something, what I spoke about earlier is like a very spiritual thing, right? And like what you're bringing up now is like a very modern, practical thing. And I feel like they live in different hemispheres, right? Like, yeah. Um, I mean, the creative process that happens for you, like to heal and so on, doesn't care what you copy, right? I mean, if I don't know, if a Klimt painting inspires me and it feels right to paint something very similar and that's what's healing, then,
Mhm.
that's what it wants to do, and
Mhm.
you got to do it. But once you start trying to sell things, then yeah, you're subject to all these rules and laws, not supposed to copy other people's stuff. It's a completely different world.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean that's all I have to say about that. Like
Yeah.
once something becomes like a for money endeavor, it really does become very different. I did find that with art. Like I spoke, quite a bit today about art as a healing medium,
Mhm.
and I'm a strong believer in that. I have also exhibited art and sold art and worked with galleries, and I will tell you that the experience of art becomes completely different once it becomes an object for sale.
Mhm.
I at some point like had to face a choice, like why am I doing this and how do I want to do it? Because if I really made it about like trying to make it and sell my paintings and being in galleries, it was stopping to be the healing elixir that,
Mhm.
you know, that it was. It's almost like, you follow the thread, like the gold thread,
Mhm.
or you follow the market, right? Like you don't get to do both. And I know there are many, many people out there, like artists in particular, who disagree with me. There are many people who say no bullshit, you can have both. But
Mhm.
my experience is that you can't have both. The moment I start thinking about the market and what market wants and how it's gonna sell and what the price is and how many Instagram likes I'm gonna get and like all this, that's it, right? The voice shuts down.
Mhm.
Like the miraculous, spiritual, inexplicable process, it goes quiet.
Mhm.
And all I get then is Instagram likes, and that has not been fulfilling.
Mhm. Got it. It's my understanding that you could speak to a couple examples, but artists, I don't know if Picasso is one of them or other artists, or Van Gogh, they were not famous at all during their lifetime, right? They became
There
famous.
are
They
many,
didn't, they
right?
didn't make any money even, right? They were living in poverty or in
I
homelessness.
mean, Picasso did very well for himself,
Okay,
but
Picasso's not an example, but
yeah,
who?
yeah, but
Who's?
but there are a lot of others for sure that were not. I mean, Van Gogh is a famous example, right? He
Van
didn't.
Gogh. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing about art. If you do want to, I mean, everything I spoke about today, it's like art for yourself. Like you make it for you, like to give your voice, like your soul, your psyche, a voice to speak and to evolve. But if you are doing it for others, that's okay too, to like do it as a contribution to the world.
Mhm.
But if you're gonna do it that way, I feel like you have to accept the fact that you don't get to know how it impacted people, right? And that's the thing with the art. It's like you share it, say, on Instagram or social media, or I don't know, maybe it's a graffiti on the wall somewhere. Um, do you tell artists that they've impacted you when you see something impactful? I don't. So I go see a painting and I'm moved by it and I go call up the artist and I'm like, oh, your painting really moved me, right? Like I don't say that.
Mhm.
Nobody says that. So then as an artist, you kind of have to like have this almost like faith that it matters.
Mhm.
Um, but you don't get to know, you make the artwork, you put it out in the world, you choose to share it.
Mhm.
So if you choose to share it, you kind of do it for others, right? If you just did it for yourself, you wouldn't have to share it. You
Mhm.
share it because you do it for others. And then you have to have faith that somehow it makes a difference, but you don't know if and when it makes a difference. Again, maybe it's after your lifetime. Maybe you're never famous in your lifetime or never appreciated in your lifetime, but after you pass, maybe a century later, somebody sees your piece and they're like, yes,
Mhm.
somebody understood. Like, I feel the same way. It's impactful, but we don't get to know.
Good to know. And Van Gogh, right? Wasn't he either homeless or living in poverty his whole life? And he was not name recognizable until well after death. Am I wrong
No,
about
I
that?
believe he was like supported by his brother. I mean, again,
Oh,
don't quote me, I could be wrong, but I
oh,
think he was supported by his brother, right? And his brother helped buy paints and supported him financially. But yeah, he never Van Gogh never got to know that his work succeeded. But how many people were impacted by his work? I mean, Van Gogh was very depressed. I mean, he had all kinds of mental health issues.
mhm.
Um, Yep. I
Cut
mean,
off
I
his
think
ear. Is that the guy? He
that's
cut
the
off.
guy. He
That's the
did it
guy.
for a lover. Yeah.
What's the
Um,
Picasso quote? Going back to nonconformist, isn't Picasso have a quote about understanding all the rules, and then an artist knows how to master all, so they could rip them up and throw them out? Help me with that quote.
it it
It's
was something like learn the rules, learn all the rules so you can break them like a master.
learn all the rules like a master, so you can break them like, or maybe you had it right, but it's about learning the rules.
It's not like learn the rule. Yeah, no, I think it's like learn the rules like a master so you can break them like an artist. Something
That's
like
what it
that.
is. I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
what
It's something.
it
It's something
is.
like learn the rules so you can break them. Basically, that was
Right.
his carry away. Yeah.
Exactly. So I have a question about what's in the future for you, because we were talking about therapy. We're talking about artistry, right? We're talking about forensic accounting. What else might you be tackling as the years go on in terms of the as
You know,
years ahead?
I'm good. I think I think I'm pretty saturated now. You know,
Okay.
I feel like I'm done trying to figure out what it is I want to do when I grow up.
Okay.
I think I'm good now. I think I figured it out.
Okay.
And it's nothing, you know, it would be great if I could just sit around and do nothing. I'm just kidding. No, I'm honestly I'm quite happy with uh, doing art on my own terms. It doesn't need to sell.
Mhm.
I feel like that's like actually my center.
Mhm.
Like my vocations that I do for no, the things that I do for a living could evolve depending on where the world goes, right? Like I'm gonna have to do what sells because I gotta pay my bills.
Mhm.
But art is my center. Like I expect that I will continue to do art my whole life.
Mhm.
Uh, mostly for me, but I do make a point of sharing it because I do think it makes a difference. I might never hear if it made a difference. Maybe it makes a difference after my death.
Mhm.
Maybe it only makes a difference to my kids after I die. I don't know, right? I have no way of knowing. But I have faith that art makes an impact, so I do share it. So that's my center. I make it, I share it.
Mhm.
At the moment, it's paintings. I also do some writing, you know, like I said, I dance. I don't know, who knows, could evolve in the future, but I create.
Mhm.
So that I expect to remain stable. Like that is something I will do, I think, until I die. As far as like what I do for a living, I love being a therapist. I really enjoy that, so I think uh, I'll stick with that.
Mhm.
Um, I hope that, you know, once I'm fully licensed as a therapist, I hope to contribute in other ways other than just like one-on-one work. I like one-on-one work, but I would love to like create educational materials, books, classes, you know, things like that. So I hope I can build on that, but I need to be fully licensed before I can enter that space, right? I need to actually like have the recognized expertise with licensing and, you know, stamp of approval from the big guys. I gotta get that first. So once I have that, I'd like to evolve like my therapy work into kind of broader contributions. You know, maybe I can do a podcast like this. I don't know. Or is this a podcast? What would I call it? Like
It's a
it's
podcast, I think. It's a
yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah. Um, so um, there's that. As far as like other work, like forensic accounting work, consulting work, I actually think it's a perfect complement to therapy because it's like one is a rest from another, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because, like, as a therapist, I feel like I can only carry so many clients a week, you know? It's
Hmm.
like carrying people's emotional content and stories and being fully present for them.
Hmm.
It's not easy, you know? And you get tired in a particular kind of way.
Hmm.
So like it's actually easier on my like psyche and my body and just general like energy levels if I do the two things, right? So like I have therapy and I almost do like consulting, like corporate consulting, forensic accounting as a form of rest from the other, you
Hmm.
know, because then I get to like leave my emotional attunement behind, you know, and I can just be very like cerebral for a bit, just be in my hole and like read something and write something. You know, it's a very different kind of intellectual activity from being present with people emotionally. So I actually, honestly, I like doing both, right? Like, I don't know that I would want to do corporate consulting or forensic accounting, you know, 100% of the time. I mean, I used to do that. I mean, obviously, I moved out of it for a reason. It wasn't quite as fulfilling as I wanted. But I don't know that like I want to sit like 40 hours. 50 hours a week just doing sessions back to back. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of sessions.
Hmm.
So I right now I very much like the combination. I feel like it's a perfect sweet spot for me.
Okay. So you might appreciate this. We have two quick things I want to do. A couple icebreaker questions, which you'll appreciate is kind of ironic because as I'm sure you've done some group coaching or some group where we do the icebreakers here at the end on the podcast. It's just the way it's been working out. Usually those are done at the beginning. We do the
Yeah.
icebreakers. We do a couple of fun icebreaker questions at the end, just kind of thought experiments, so to speak. So we'll do one or two of those just for fun at the end here. And I definitely want to get all your contact information with your website, right? With Instagram, whatever else it might be. Want to share that with the listeners and with the viewers. So we'll do a couple of icebreaker questions at the end. So what if you could only travel to the future, if you had a time machine, you can only travel to the future or to the past, where would you travel to in the time machine?
I don't want to travel to the future because maybe there are things I don't want to know, right? Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather live in peace. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just like, I'm a little frightened of where humanity is going. We didn't speak about my sustainability profession and like this what makes for a sustainable world and climate change and all that. There's part of me where I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want to know, like where that's all going. So I think I'm going to choose the past.
Mhm,
Um, and as far as where or when,
mhm,
I don't know. I think it would be very interesting to see like societies that existed before agriculture,
mhm,
like hunting and gathering society, like shamanic societies.
mhm,
Uh, I could hang out with them. I don't know, dance around the fire, make some cave drawings. I'm game. I
mhm.
think.
Nice.
Yeah,
And we'd love to have you back for another episode to talk about sustainability. We didn't get a chance to do that today, but we'd love to have you back to discuss that. I know that's also a passion of yours, right? The
yeah.
environment and sustainability and the climate. And so we'd love to have
But
you back to do that. One more icebreaker question will be spirit animal. What's your spirit animal?
what's my spirit animal? I'm gonna have to say a cat.
Okay.
Totally a cat. Black cat. What we haven't talked about is I'm also a tarot card reader. We can
Okay.
talk.
Bring
We
that
we
in.
can we can talk about that one the next podcast. That brings actually all threads together. The art, because tarot is art. It's Jungian themes, myth themes, symbology, archetypes, psychology. It's all in there.
Okay, so cat it is, and then some topics for your next appearance on the podcast. And let's go through your coordinates. So website, let's get that out there. So what is your website or websites plural even, right? You tell me.
Well, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and give you
And we'll put
this
these in the
one.
show notes too, and because we're on like right now we're on YouTube. And then we're also on Spotify and Apple, and I put them on Facebook feed. So wherever we have an opportunity in the show notes, we'll put your in the comment section, we'll put your website link and so on. So we'll try to get this typed out as well. But for now, verbally, what are your websites?
It's just annazubets.com. Very easy. So you go there, and there's my coaching page, which sort of describes my coaching philosophy.
Mhm.
I actually talk a little bit about tarot cards there too. And then there's the art page, and you get to go there and see all the stuff I painted.
Okay.
I think that's me. I also have the website for like sustainability consulting, but why don't we tackle it next? 'Cause we didn't really talk much about it today.
Okay.
So we'll do that in the next podcast.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. There's also a profile from you on Psychology Today, but I work under supervision, so it's okay. We don't have to um, push that.
Okay. So
Um,
Anna Zubets, how do we spell that? So AnnaZubets.com. It's ANNAZUBETS. Do I have that right?
yep,
Okay. So A N
yep,
N A Z U B E T S.com. And that's
yep.
a nice starting point. And so what if somebody wanted a therapist or a coach, can you take on one-on-one clients at this point? Is that something that you're open to doing? Or you're at that point in your career where you would be open to new
So
clients?
I have to keep my coaching work and my therapy work separate, right? Like for regulatory reasons and so on. So if it's therapy, I would have to direct people to the agencies that I work with
Mhm.
because I can't work independently. I'm a new therapist. I'm still working on accumulating my required experience, right? So I would, if you're in New York, there's an agency I work for called Integrity Social Work Services. And if it's New Jersey, right now I work for Bergen County Therapist Office, right? So like these are the offices I work for right now. So if it's a therapy, client, then I would direct them to one of these agencies, and whether it's me or another therapist, we would work together, and I would work under supervision.
Mhm.
AnnaZubets.com is my website for art and coaching. So and I mean, definitely take new coaching clients always.
Okay.
Definitely take new art clients too.
Okay.
You want to
Do
buy a
you
painting?
sell art at this point? Do you have art for sale? Yeah.
I
Okay.
do. I offer, like I said, I don't focus on the market. Like I don't, when I make a painting, I just don't concern myself with whether it's something that will sell. I just don't. I
Mm.
can't. Once it becomes the final product, like once it's done, yeah, I will put it on my website. It's available for sale. I also kind of think about like, okay, will this look good on a bag? Will this look good on a coaster? So I have all kinds of stuff like that. Like on my website, if you go check out the art page,
Mhm.
you'll see I offer all kinds of like there's mugs, there are like not wine glasses, they're like I guess, liquor glasses
Mhm.
with art on them. They're coasters, which are actually quite popular. I've sold quite a few of them. They're bags,
Mhm.
so like I'll kind of look like once the artwork is done, then I kind of enter the marketing mindset and I'm like, okay, like what can I do with this image? So there are plenty of products there. So yeah, so I, you know,
What
sell
about
that
the
for sure.
wonderful? What about the wonderful world of social media? Do you have an Instagram account? Do you have a LinkedIn account? Any of that stuff? Do you want to share that or
Yeah,
okay.
totally. What is it? Instagram is you have to put at, right? In the beginning. I will show you. Yeah, follow me on Instagram for sure.
Okay, there it is. So at Anna Zubets-Anderson, right?
My whole giant name, yeah.
Okay. And same thing, we'll put this in the comment section at the very least on YouTube and wherever else we can. And so there's Instagram and Anna, it's been a pleasure. It's
Thank you,
I
Matt.
could
Great question. You really definitely kept me on my toes.
kept you on your toes, learned a lot, and the more I learn, I hope also listeners will learn as well. And that's really my primary objective at this point is to try to learn as much as possible on these podcasts from different professions and different vocations, different types of work, and all sorts of interesting people. So I appreciate your time, and would love to have you back if you're open to it. Talk about sustainability, tarot cards, whatever else we could sink our teeth
Whatever
into.
other profession I might pick up along the way, we never know, right?
Yeah, I mean, stay tuned. You have a fourth profession in
You
process.
got you got the ultimate jack of all trades here.
Yeah, this is like 4 episodes. This is like 3 episodes in one. We got multiple professions covered today.
Oh yeah. There's more we haven't talked about up my sleeve. So thank you, Matt. I mean this is I think awesome work that you're doing. This is a great podcast. I think it's really a fantastic idea to have people come in and like speak, real experiences of working in different fields. Especially like in the time that we're living with everything changing so fast, the AI taking over stuff. It's really helpful to people.
Mm, thank you for that. All right.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.